Okay, after a couple of tries, I think we got it. I think this is going to work, guys. So y'all are in here, right, ready to go. Let's do a little test. And hopefully it all works. What kind of reacting would I be doing? Yelling, hollering, and screaming, because that's just so much like my person. I like to yell, holler, and scream because, yeah, you know. Let's see.
Hey friends, my name is Eric.
Okay, audio's coming through great. We're going to talk a little bit with Eric, I guess. Let's talk to you guys first and let me know what you're up to. Hit that like button. I step away for 1 minute and it's chaos, correct. There you are, and hey, you better stick in there because this is your video that you sent me to react to. And we're back, PT. We are back. Thumbnail's not showing up. Is my thumbnail showing up? Why is my thumbnail not showing up? I love it when stuff doesn't work, don't you? I hope this doesn't go nuts. Okie dokie. Because I like, that I got a mean face in the thumbnail, right? Just hit that like button, guys. We're waiting for folks to jump in here. I guess I meant more in regard to the content. So I don't know. David, I have no idea, man. Like, people send me stuff and they go, hey, would you react to this? Sometimes I'll watch it. Sometimes I will not. Sometimes I'll just watch kind of the beginning portion of it and see, it's like, hey, is it related to kind of stuff that I talk about? And then if it is, then that's the direction we go into. Now, this is related to that. I've seen just the beginning portion of it. It has to do with apologetic stuff. But if you're interested in stuff that you want to see me react to, feel free to email that to info@apologiacenter.com. info@apologiacenter.com. And we'll react to that stuff. But most of the time I try not to watch the videos for two reasons, at least. One being because I really don't want to spend the time watching the thing twice. The other one being is that I want to kind of be caught off guard in my reactions. The way I would react to it without having to do preparation for it. Just a natural reaction to what's being said, which means I might make mistakes. I might say things that are wrong, whatever comes with the territory. But I enjoy that quite a bit more. Okay. So yeah. Armando, what's up, man? Do we as Christians have to observe Feast Tabernacle? No, we don't. That's very clear, I think, in the New Testament. And I don't know the passage being quoted here, but go look it up. If it's good in context, then that's what's being said. But I would say definitely not. We are not under the old covenant. Done. We're not under the old covenant. Anybody else who says that is what Paul would call a Judaizer, in the sense of like we have to follow these feasts and rules. We don't have to is the important thing. Now, some people might choose to. God bless you. Have fun. As long as you're not making it mandatory for Christians to have to. Okay? So, this was sent to this video was sent to us by none other than our very own Zillahawk. That's not what I want. And this is a fellow YouTuber. Sped it up a little bit. Let's see. Playback speed, fast. Faster, double. No, we'll keep it at fast. $125, which is fine. Okay. And it has to do with apologetics. No, sorry. Zillahawk didn't send me this. Forgive me. I confused you guys. PT sent me this. Sorry, I'm giving credit to the wrong folks. So this is PT's sent video as would I respond to this? What did the email say? The email said, hey, Arthur, wondering if you could react to this video. This is from a channel called Skeptics and Scoundrels. And the topic is focused on God killing children. That's the link to the video. God bless you. So yeah, we will do that. We will be responding to this video. Let me actually do something else right before we won't do it. Forget it. Okay. Michael, don't be annoying. I'll block you. Sorry about that. Okay. I think we got the audio working. We're going to jump into this. I'll pause it. I'll comment on it. Got my pen and pad next to me. You guys ready for this? If you're ready for it, drop a 1 in the comment section as I get prepared. Let me know that you are tuned in, paying attention as we will navigate through these YouTube videos or video. This. Okay, Michael. Because Michael is not behaving, assuming your name is Michael. Michael, you've been banned. Okay. Oh, look at that. Look at that. We got our boy Saad Bunny in the house. That's my boy right there. David's ready. PT's ready. The rest of you guys are sleeping because it's late and it's probably midnight where you are. So, why does God kill children? That's not that difficult of a subject. Or what? Why? Okay, the video says, could God have not killed children? Skeptic. Okay, let's see what happens.
Hey friends, my name is Eric, and welcome to Skeptics and Scoundrels.
What's up, Eric? How you doing, man? Sorry for the fast forwarding.
In this episode, we're looking at a Christian apologist's response to a super chat of mine in a live stream on Godless Engineer's channel. Yeah, a link to that live stream is down below in the video's description, along with any other links to any other videos where I might have borrowed footage, including this guy. So this dude's name is Joe Wensley, whom I will be calling Joe for short.
What's up, Joe?
According to Joe's personal website, he's a Christian, college-educated pastor, author of a book available on Amazon, and regularly posts recordings of his sermons on his podcast channel. He appeared on Godless Engineer's live stream about a month ago, shortly after Godless Engineer had done a response to a video of his from his channel. But before we talk about what led up to this live stream and analysis itself, I've got a few good things to say about Joe. First off, Joe has an upbeat attitude and friendly demeanor. He's a clear and energetic speaker and is easy to listen to. Definitely a big difference compared to some of the more preachy and boring monotone speakers I've had to suffer through in the past. Secondly, after Godless Engineer's spirited and savage rebuttal of Joe's video, Joe had the courage and composure to appear on Godless Engineer's channel, on a live stream at that, and then proceeded to share in a friendly and amicable discussion with him. That's classy, and I respect that.
Well done, Joe.
And Godless Engineer already mentioned this, but I've got to mention it too. Joe, props for that beard, man. I could never hope to grow something like that.
Yep. Hey, that's a sick beard. Joe's also wearing a shirt that says Reformed, which already makes me think a number of things about him and the way he does apologetics. Forgive me for my judgmental... I'm not judging, but that's just the reality of it. So, I might have to disagree with my fellow Christian brother Joe here because of our apologetic presuppositions. But I could be completely wrong. I'm just assuming that based on his beard. Okay? All you Calvinists, you know what I'm talking about.
Definitely a little jealous. You could easily nest a family of endangered birds in that thing.
Oh my God, they're babies.
So this started when Joe posted a video on his YouTube channel where he clearly demonstrated that he has some misconceptions about atheists.
First of all, as I like to tell people, the A in atheist stands for angry. Here's the thing. No one doesn't believe there's a God. The fact that you're mad at something, the fact that you're against something is actually evidence that it exists. They wouldn't be talking about this if it wasn't real, so that's a really fun fact to start your day off with, the reason they're mad about it. What they're essentially trying to do is get back at God for not doing things the way they want. But atheists are angry at God for not doing things the way they want them done. And they usually just kind of blow that off or whatever, and that's fine. That's their issue. Every atheist, deep down, actually believes two things. They know they have an eternal destination, and they know they are guilty before God. Number one, you need to know they actually believe God exists, and that's something you need to keep in your back pocket. They're mad at God. Look for the hurt. That if you can minister to them and their hurt and their need and their anger, that's actually going to be a better place to start before trying to logically convince them of constructs they're not capable of understanding because they're so emotionally involved in their hurt and their pain.
These were all said.
Okay. First and foremost, my dear friends, and Joe, who I'm just going to say is a brother in the Lord. I am not accustomed to, neither do I enjoy or like, generalizing all atheists or all anyone a certain way. To say that all atheists are angry at God is at the very least a hasty generalization. It could be a straw man argument as well, amongst a number of other things. But I know why Joe is saying that. And like I said, based on his beard and the shirt he was wearing, which said Reformed, and based on the beard, my assumption was that he is a presuppositionalist. And maybe a presuppositionalist of a certain sort. I don't even want to categorize all presuppositionalists the same way. But when you hear comments like, deep down inside, every atheist knows that God exists, X, Y, and Z, I'm just like, no. That's, again, I said, then there's a disagreement in apologetic methodology for those who don't know amongst Christians. And if you're interested in this, you could buy a book called 5 Views on Apologetics. And it's Christians essentially disagreeing on the way we're supposed to do apologetics and all sorts of stuff. One of the things that might need to be explained is that there is evidence, like I would say there's evidence, enough evidence given for everyone to conclude that there is a God. But not everybody obviously believes that. I'm trying to simplify things quite a bit here, because when we talk about epistemic kind of access, like everybody knows this, like it's a knowledge that they have, and then they're just like keeping it as suppressing it, right? Like these passages that get thrown out. I really don't want to sit here and have that sort of a debate. Like I don't want to debate Joe, but just to say that this video I'm responding to includes a Christian whom I disagree with, which is an internal in-house family disagreement, but nonetheless, I disagree with him. Some of you guys might be presuppositionalists and might be fine with that, right? So my friend Henry over there says he's 100%, 1000% true. And I would just say, no, he's not. That is, again, a hasty generalization, X, Y, and Z. Just because you've met a bunch of atheists who tend to be angry at God, which I have, by the way. I've met people who claim to be atheists, and after talking to them for 30 to 45 minutes, it's very easily seen that they are just angry at God, or at the very least, at the idea of God. But I wouldn't be able to say that all atheists are like that. That just would not be a true statement. So, introduction, I guess, there. Let's move on.
Unironically. And I'm not here to rebut these claims. GE already did that, and I've got other fish to fry. But man, Joe, if you paint a whole group of people with such a broad brush, you're going to come across as dishonest, scared, and incapable of acknowledging nuance in other people different than you. not to mention piss off people you're trying to save. This is embarrassing, and it's not a good look. Now, naturally, Godless Engineer took exception to these statements and created a whole video response to which he tackled the nitty-gritty of Joe's claims. This quickly caught Joe's attention, so he reached out to Godless Engineer, and they both agreed to a one-on-one live stream conversation on Godless Engineer's channel. At the beginning of this interaction, Joe thanked Godless Engineer for the feedback and for tearing apart his statements.
And obviously the video that you found was me telling Christians how to witness to someone such as yourself, which was, I really actually appreciated how you tore it apart. And you did a great job tearing it apart. And that's why I was like, well, yikes.
From that point, the conversation flowed through a few topics: purpose of life, Pascal's wager, historicity of Jesus, faith, creationism versus evolution, until they broached the oh-so-fun quagmire of biblical morality.
It's like God is the standard of morality. We see it pop up everywhere. There's actually a pretty generalized collective consensus on a general level. Like most people think killing people is wrong, stuff like that. So where's our morality coming from if there is no God? So yeah.
And this eventually led to a conversation around Numbers chapter 31, verses 17 and 18, where God...
Hang on, there's Bible passages. Killing people is wrong. By the way, I don't think that's true. I don't think killing people is wrong. That is a very weak way of speaking about it, right? Like, we can all think of justifications in which killing people would not be wrong. Self-defense, war. The Bible doesn't say killing is wrong. The Bible says murder is wrong. That's very important to establish. And I'm not going to get ahead of myself, but what was it? What was the passage? I think it's Numbers 11.
Where God commanded Moses and the Israelites, around Numbers chapter 31, verses 17 and 18.
Numbers 31, 17, 18. Okay.
Where God commanded Moses and the Israelites to go and slaughter the neighboring Midianites with the explicit command to kill all the men, kill all the women, kill all the male children, kill all the non-virgin girls, and then keep the remaining virgin girls for themselves.
Like you claimed, the Godless Engineer is morally superior to God. And I would love to hear how you make that work. So I thought that was a great statement. I'd love to touch on that with you for a minute.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I could just point out one chapter in the Old Testament that proves it. Numbers 31.
Numbers 31.
Yeah,
So
specifically.
what are we looking at for Numbers 31?
It's specifically located in verses 17 and 18.
Okay.
Basically what happens is that God commands Moses to go into the Midianite culture and kill everybody.
Vengeance on Midian is the name of the chapter. So yeah, I got you.
Yeah. So they go into the Midianites, they kill everybody, all the men, all the warring men, all the men that would be fighting back, but also the women and all of these small boys. And then they captured the prepubescent girls who haven't known the touch of a man to be used in sexual slavery.
Now, while Joe disagrees,
so I'm not gonna look at the passage. I'm just gonna trust what he said there. Okay. Just gonna look. I'm just gonna go with him.
agreed with the sexual slaves inference, he did very much agree to the bit regarding the killing of everyone except the virgins.
First of all, I'm not going to concede that they were bringing in all the girls as sexual slaves. I believe they were bringing them in for something else. But the killing of everyone, I will concede that because that is exactly.
Now I got to look it up. I'm going to look it up in my big Bible. This is my church Bible, ladies and gentlemen. I take this to church only. This is a heavy one. It's holier. Numbers 31. and 18. Now therefore, kill every boy and kill every woman who has been intimate with a man in bed, but all the young women who have not experienced a man's bed will be yours. Okay. And if you have, and of you who has killed anyone or touched any of the dead remain outside the camp. Okay, there's cleansing stuff given there. Henry, we are in the Matrix. He said, wait a minute, are you doing a live stream on a guy who did a live stream on two guys doing a live stream? Welcome to the world of live streaming on YouTube. It's Inception, guys. This is Inception. So yeah, I think it is an inference to say that they're being taken as sex slaves. Again, this is without studying and looking at text and having it top of my mind. So I'm pretty sure that they would take these women and then they would become their wives, not sex slaves. To assume that they're sex slaves is a completely different thing. But let's just move on. Okay, let's see where this is going.
Exactly what Numbers 31 says.
And finally, the discussion reached the point where I dropped Joe a super chat to ask him a question.
Hey, but you drop me
Eric
a super
again
chat.
says, could God accomplish 100% of his goals with zero killing or murder? Could his goals have been satisfied without the execution of children?
Before they answer it, I'm going to give it a shot and then we'll compare we'll compare answers. Could God accomplish 100% of his goals with zero killing or murder? Could his goals have been satisfied? I should cut that in. Could his goals have been satisfied without the execution of children? My immediate response to this is no. And that is not in any way a limitation on God's ability to do all things. Because God set up the world in a certain way where there's certain kind of freedoms. I mean, we can jump through the philosophical, wormhole or something like that and talk about what a world looks like that there's free will in, and whether God could accomplish, X, Y, and Z. God has chosen to actualize a world in which such and such and such things are the way they are. Plenty of these sorts of questions, by the way, are set up in a certain way where a number of assumptions would have to be true in order for you to get the sort of answer that you want to get. Okay? So I would say no. So David says, will we get 3 answers from 3 apologists? And you might, David. You might get 3 answers. And that doesn't mean that they're all right. That doesn't mean, it could mean that they're all wrong or we're all wrong. But that's that's what thinking is, right? We sit there and we process this information. There's presuppositions. There are a number of things to be considered. There's theology and differences in theological perspective that will help us answer these questions because it fits generally into the realm of systematic theology as to how we would answer these questions. So yeah, you will get different answers. And then what? Aren't there only 2 apologists here? Well, he's trying to be triune here, Saad. He's saying 3 because it's such an awesome number. Okay, moving on. I would say no to this question, by the way. I wouldn't say yes. I might, depending on the conversation, I might actually say I don't know. But for the time being, I would say no.
Before we go into his response, I want to say that in retrospect, since the 2 questions are both basically the same ask, I should have dropped the first question for brevity's sake. I think the second question adequately handled the inquiry on its own, or better yet, simply ask half of both questions together as, could God accomplish 100% of his goals without the execution of children? But this was an off-the-cuff question on a live stream chat, and it is what it is. So a lesson learned for next time. So I formulated these 2 questions very purposefully. All they require is a simple yes, no, or I don't know response. Neither question is loaded with unfounded assumptions, and I feel they were both clear and concise. Simple, right? Well, to my amazement and amusement, these questions immediately short-circuited his brain.
Well, I mean, obviously not. God chose to use those devices to display his glory and accomplish his goals. So could God? I mean, I don't know. You'll have to ask him yourself. But what he chose to do, the best way for him to do that in our fallen state, recognizing that sin and death, like even the fact that those things are in the equation as a result of man's sin, not God's original perfect garden, recognizing that we bear some responsibility in sin and death and atrocities, God clearly decided that this was the best way to accomplish his goals, whatever his goals were at those times. So no, God couldn't do that. Maybe he couldn't, but he chose to do it this way.
Okay.
Wow, that was a lot of words for a simple
I just want to say this guy has a sick voice. Like, he's got a cool voice. He's got a radio voice. That's well done.
yes, no, I don't know question. Let's walk through it and try to sort this mess out.
Let's do it.
I didn't really do that. That was done on the computer and post-production, and it's like all technical.
Could his goals have been satisfied without the execution of children?
Well, I mean, obviously not.
Great. Simple answer. It's clear. It's concise. It's a no. But it does raise some questions about God's ability. Namely, if God could obviously not satisfy his goals without commanding the Israelites to slaughter the Midianites and their children, then why not? Joe, this question raises some troubling implications about this God of yours. Troubling for you, that is, not for me. Despite what you think, I don't believe in the guy. So if God could obviously not satisfy his goals without killing children, that breaks us down into two categories: no free will and free will. One possibility is that God simply lacked the free will to choose otherwise, and that's why he could obviously not avoid the execution of children. In which case, he's limited in or lacks agency. And that means there's an aspect of himself that he himself cannot change or even has control over, which means he's not all powerful. And under the free will path, it's also fairly simple. God couldn't do it, but he had the free will to do it. That means something prevented him from avoiding the slaughtering of children. What was it? Did he lack the power to actualize a better course of action, in which case he's not all powerful? Did he lack the knowledge to devise a better plan, in which case he's not all knowing? Did he lack motivation? He just didn't want to, he was lazy? In which case he's not benevolent? Or is it something else that's not mentioned here? Something else prevented him from taking a better course of action? Something locked him out of all the other non-child killing options, and the only subset of options available to him all involved the killing of children. In which case, he was at the mercy of circumstance, which means he's not all powerful.
So this is very similar to the Euthyphro dilemma, for those who are aware of the Euthyphro dilemma. And it's a formulation of the Euthyphro dilemma. I think it's a false dichotomy. It's not a free will or not free will question. It might be a nature's question. It might be a question of how God has actualized the world and what he desires to do. And so there's a lot of more categories to go into it. I think this is oversimplification, simply put. But moving on.
It's a shame that Joe or his Bible doesn't address these issues.
God.
Well, Joel might not do it. That's different than the Bible not doing it, because the Bible doesn't need to do it. That's not the purpose of the Bible. I mean, that's like saying write a book and address everything that is remotely related to anything you're saying in the book. The book would never end. Right?
Chose to use those devices to display his glory and accomplish his goals.
Okay, wait, so now God did choose to do this? If God did choose to do this, then that means he could have chosen otherwise. So we're now at a yes answer on this question. And not only that, God chose to use these devices on purpose. This also raises some issues. So now that we're in the yes category, that means God has free will because he could have chosen otherwise, which leaves us two possibilities. Either he did or did not want to choose otherwise. If he did not want to choose otherwise, then that means he chose to execute children despite having other options, which would mean he wanted children executed? For what? The funsies? Some requirement? Some need? Oh, for morally sufficient reasons, as some Christians would say. Of course, the execution of children was done for morally sufficient reasons. Duh. Oh.
I wonder if this guy is for I'm going to make a point here, but and it's not ad hominem. I wonder if this gentleman is pro-choice and whether he thinks there are morally sufficient reasons for the killing of the children in the womb. Now, the question here between these two examples is not whether abortion's right or wrong or whatever. The comparison is that he thinks there are morally sufficient reasons, if he is, by the way. I could be wrong here. But even if he's not, folks who think that they can have abortions think there are morally sufficient reasons to kill their children. Now, my disagreement with people like that would be that there aren't, not that there aren't, but their reasons are not actually morally sufficient. Now, what we should really talk about and think about is whether God's reasons are morally sufficient or not. That's where the conversation really should go. Maybe, well, I don't know.
Wait, this just kicks the can because God could have avoided execution of children in a way that accommodated those morally sufficient reasons, right? If no, then we're back to him not being all powerful or all knowing again.
That's not true because that's a false dichotomy. But okay.
And if yes, and he could have, then he executed children when it could have been avoided, and now he's not benevolent. Morally sufficient reasons isn't a good answer here because God should be able to meet those morally sufficient reasons by any manner or means of his, with that big brain and all. And that leaves the last path. God could do it. He had the power, knowledge, and will, and he wanted to do it. But children died anyway. Why? Nothing prevented him from avoiding killing children. He would still reach his goals, and he should have wanted to not kill children. But it happened anyway. I see this as a direct contradiction to the nature of God Joe claims exists. If only we had a name for this, if only some past philosophers had already presented this problem of evil, we wouldn't have to be talking about it now.
So could God? I mean, I don't know. You'll have to.
Yeah, well, look, Alvin Plantinga's very clearly answered the problem of evil. Very clearly. It doesn't get brought up in philosophical circles really that much in regards, at least at the very least, in its logical form. But okay. It's like, oh, only philosophers came up with it and had some kind of an argument. They did. It's been answered.
Ask him yourself.
Okay, I don't know. That's a totally fair answer. And I think it's your most honest one thus far. But it's literally the last possible answer you could have given. Oh my God, you gave me all three answers in less than 10 seconds.
He said, oh my God, the God he doesn't believe in. But hey, point to Joe, by the way, for saying all atheists believe in God. Hey, I disagree with Joe. I disagree with Joe as a Christian in regards to atheists, but this dude is an atheist who just said, oh my God. Just saying, man. Just having fun, dude.
And you want me to ask God myself? Contrary to your ignorant belief, I don't...
Well, you kind of cried out, oh my God. You could ask him. You're kind of... Your soul is crying. Like, I can't believe this is what he said.
I believe he exists. And you're the pastor. You're supposed to convince me he exists.
Okay,
If anyone...
okay. Hang on here, guys. Hang on. That's not cool. Okay, that's not cool. I'll tell you why.
Contrary to your ignorant belief, I don't believe he exists. We wouldn't have to be talking about it now.
He doesn't...
So could God? I mean, I don't know. You'll have to ask him yourself.
Okay, I don't know. That's a totally fair answer. And I think it's your most honest one thus far. But it's literally the last possible answer you could have given. Oh my God, you gave me all three answers in less than 10 seconds. And you want me to ask God myself? Contrary to your ignorant belief, I don't believe he exists. And
But you just said, oh my God. It's okay.
you're the pastor. You're supposed to convince me he exists. If anyone could just ask...
Well, that's a cheap shot. It's like, you're an atheist. You're supposed to do X, Y, and Z. It's like, not all pastors are made equally, right? They might not have the right answers. We could be wrong. Christians could be wrong on all sorts of stuff. It's like, that just, it doesn't mean much, right? Cultural habits are hard to break. Well, if you really believe it, don't say it. You don't see me walking around saying all sorts of crazy stuff.
ask God for anything and get an answer, then what are you here for?
But what he chose to do.
Come on now, bro. Like, your belief in God or unbelief in God is not reliant on Joe or me. If you're really interested in the subject, you probably should be doing a lot more reading and studying than Joe. I hope you are. Right, Eric? You seem like a nice guy, by the way. Not trying to be a jerk.
The best way for him to do that in our fallen state, recognizing that sin and death, like even the fact that those things are in the equation as a result of man's sin, not God's original perfect garden, recognizing that we bear some responsibility in sin and death and atrocities, God clearly decided that this was the best way to accomplish his goals, whatever his goals were at those times.
Oh my God. I think my brain just spun on my skull. Let's break this down.
But what he chose to do.
God chose what to do. So now we're back to the yes, he had a choice. And therefore he had the ability to choose otherwise and accomplish his goals without slaughtering children. But he didn't.
The best way for him to do that in our fallen state.
So now Joe is saying that this is the best way to do this under the given conditions.
Okay, look, it's a bit unfair to Joe. I think, Eric, what you're doing here is a bit unfair to Joe, right? He's speaking very much like I'm processing this live. I haven't seen this video. I haven't had preparation. Like, I haven't scripted stuff. He's speaking, and what you're doing is you're taking that pattern of speech, the way, whether he put something first or last, and then you go and prepare a scripted response. And you say, well, you're saying this, you're saying that. That's unfair. I think that's you're not being charitable, is what I would say. Okay. I generally think we ought to be charitable whenever we're saying things of this sort.
Which would mean that God could not find a better way.
Maybe not, by the way. Read some theological philosophy or philosophical theology. There are plenty of people that don't think think that there are things God cannot do. Christian thinkers. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility for a Christian to get up there and say, no, I don't think God could have done otherwise. Like, that was the only choice here. By the way, all you need to do is change the conditions. All you need to do is change like what a possible outcome of the survival. Let me just play around here. Say God said, I'm not going to kill any one of those people, right? We're just going to like drive them out. And then what would the result be is that they come back and they kill the Israelites, right? Or there's a larger war, or there's like any time there is a question of this sort when it comes to the problem of evil, you can possibly come up with a number of outcomes that would be much worse than what's happening in that situation. And then you say, is it justifiable to do that? Right. If I was having a conversation with Eric, I'd ask him questions like, do you think it's justified to go to war? Do you think World War II was justified? A bunch of people died, a bunch of innocent people died. Could it have been avoided? And X, Y, and Z. And then we'd have a conversation about that. And all we would need to do is change some assumptions about that. And we're going to come up. This is what I mean when I think there's a false dichotomy happening here. I also think there's oversimplification taking place.
Now we're at no again. God couldn't have accomplished his goals without the killing of children, since all other possible ways to accomplish his goals required the killing of children. So now we're back to not all-powerful or all-knowing. Why do I say all-knowing on this one? Because I found a way to accomplish God's goals here without murdering children.
Okay,
all God had to do was snap his fingers, teleport the Midianites, along with their village, their belongings, and everything needed for survival, to an isolated part of the earth. And once that's done, remove their ability to reproduce. Problem solved. The
okay.
Midianites are removed from the equation, and they are no longer a threat, real or not, to the Israelites. The leftover land is open and ready for the taking. No children, or anyone for that matter, had to be murdered. No virgin girls had to be kept as trophies. The Midianites could live out their lives in peace and die naturally. And with regard to the Israelite army, it's certainly better to not have an army accustomed to killing children and taking virgin trophies. And the cherry on top, it's an amazing story for God's future Bible. Certainly more compelling than sending a bunch of marauding savages to raise a village, murder the inhabitants, and keep the virgin for themselves, because that's what everyone else back then was doing. So there you go, Joe. I formulated a better plan than your God did, with no killing and a better outcome for everyone across the board.
The problem here, right, is that he doesn't know the possibilities of the things that could potentially happen. Right? Whether for the Israelites, whether for the Midianites, whatever that may be. It's like, oh, here it is. It goes back to that whole Bruce Almighty thing. Like, if I were God, I would be doing, answering prayers and this. It's like you might create like a crazy kind of chaos chain of events happening. God is all-knowing. He's able to know those things. It's a very interesting shot there.
No, please, God, you're welcome.
Man, I don't like smug people. Eric, I really hope you're not a smug guy, man.
Anyway, where were we? All right.
Recognizing that sin and death, like even the fact that those things are in the equation as a result of man's sin, not God's original perfect garden.
So what Joe is basically saying here is we are so bad and so sinful that God could not have handled this situation any different. Mankind, in our debauchery, shackled God to these terrible options. So not only does that put us back into the no camp, but it now also means that man can compel God to take actions he normally wouldn't.
Yes. That's very clear when you read the Bible. God has actualized a world in which that's the case.
Or lock him out of actions that he normally would. And God is unable to work around this. So now he's not all powerful and all-knowing yet again.
Recognizing that we bear some responsibility on sin and death and atrocities, God clearly decided that this was the best way to accomplish his goals, whatever his goals were at those times.
So here Joe is admitting that executing children is an atrocity, right? For the sake of your humanity, Joe, I really hope so. And on top of that, if we humans bear some responsibility for sin, death, and atrocities, some responsibility, then your God bears the rest. Responsibility for sin, death, and atrocities, because he's the source of it. He's the source of everything, right? And you might have missed it, but Joe said God clearly decided, so that puts us back into yes.
So no, God couldn't do that.
Oh, we're back to no again.
Maybe he couldn't.
Oh, that's I don't know again. We're back into unfair. I don't know again territory.
But he chose to do it this way.
Jesus Christ, he chose? Then that means it's a yes.
Okay.
Whew, okay. All right, we're through that. All right. So what's the final score? Sweet Buddha. So when I first heard Joe give his answer, I knew it was a mess. But now that I've actually spent a few hours sorting through his response and writing the script, man, I more fully appreciate the concept.
Key word here, by the way, writing a script when Joe didn't have a script, he was just thinking on his feet. I think we ought to be gracious whenever whether theist, atheist, doesn't matter. It really does not matter. Be gracious. Unless you just don't want to be and you want to be a jerk, then be a jerk.
Of Brandolini's law. I mean, I already knew how the law was true, but man, after sifting through that, I now understand how that law is true. So time to wrap this up. I've drawn a few conclusions from this interaction, and keep in mind, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a philosopher, I'm not a Jedi.
That's right, you're not. You're not a philosopher.
Minds. So take my opinions here as just that, opinions. First off, it's obvious that Joe has never before considered such a simple question like, could God have accomplished his goals with...
But is it really obvious? Clearly not. But let's not say it's obvious when it's clearly not obvious. It just could be that, I don't know, Joe got nervous and just didn't answer a question well. Happens to all of us.
Without the killing of children. He had nothing approaching a coherent answer. And as he did try to work towards the answer while giving the answer, you could see his mind dashing back and forth between yes and no, like a baseball player caught in a pickle. Secondly, I find it telling how Joe didn't give the question even a moment of consideration or thought before he rushed into the answer. Now, granted, this could have been nervousness.
That might be the reason. Well, I would say that might show that he has thought about it. So your whole obvious he hasn't thought about this thing doesn't fit. And it could just be he's speaking out of his worldview, and his worldview is set up in that way, and so he answers the questions those ways.
From being on a live chat, I mean, a majority of the audience is there. They hold opinions that are at odds with his own, naturally putting him in a defensive position, having to think on his feet and all. I can totally understand that. If I was in that position, I would feel the same exact way.
Really?
But Joe, a simple moment of consideration followed by an I don't know would have been fine. And I think that this is a product of him being a college-educated pastor of, I'm assuming, a church. He likely views himself as looked up to and followed by his parishioners.
Now, there's some fallacies coming up here. You're assuming a bunch of stuff about his person, ad hominem, poisoning the well. Come on now, buddy.
After all, he was called by God to be the channel for all of their spiritual guidance and answers. So I imagine he's normally in a position of answering questions
Lord
with
have mercy.
With speed, confidence, bravado. But when faced with a single question from a random and average non-believer,
that's the equivalent of me saying atheists are just hateful, immoral folks because, I just want to say it. Be nice.
A question that your average Christ-accepting church-going sheep would almost never ask. He was utterly unprepared
almost never
to address
us
it.
sheep, we're so stupid, man.
Following Mark 13:11, where it says to do not worry beforehand about what to say. Just say whatever is given you at the time, for it is not you speaking, but the Holy Spirit.
Okay, now look, man, I got an issue. Eric, if you ever happen to watch this, number one, don't be a jerk. I don't know how old you are. Don't be a jerk. Your life will be much better. Don't be smug. Your life will be much better. You come off as like you just know it all. Don't do that. It's not good for you. It's probably not a very good way of raising children. I don't know if you have children or not, but don't raise them like that, please. Because I'd like my children not to hang out with people like that. Also, here's what you don't do. Misquote Bible passages. Because it's just wrong. Unless you don't believe in objective morality, then you can do whatever you want to do. But I don't want to accuse you of doing whatever you want to do and not believe in an objective morality. Because you spend a whole video talking about how you have issues with what God has done based on objective moral standards that, frankly, I don't know where you get them from. But you did it. So, moving on.
And I'll be honest, if this is the Holy Spirit speaking, I'm not impressed. So I'd like to conclude with some additional comments on some of his statements in his later interaction.
I just want to say that Eric does not represent atheists everywhere. Thank God. And yes, I believe in him. And thank you, Jesus. Thank you, God, that Eric does not represent all the atheists everywhere.
With Godless Engineer.
And I will say, first of all, like lots of your comments about, well, okay, this is a really crappy move. He's kind of being a jerk here. I was kind of like, yeah, if I heard me and I walked up to someone and I was like, I know what you believe better than you, that's a sucky way to start a conversation.
So here he admits that he can be empathetic in regard to somebody being approached by a stranger and told, I know what you're thinking better than you do. Great. Joe, you're able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. That's a great quality to have.
This dude just spent the last 30 seconds quoting from his website and saying you're called by God and you should be X, Y, and Z. You're talking about empathy? Come on, man.
But why aren't you able to extend that empathy to also include people who say, I really don't believe in a God, and that's the truth?
So obviously I come at it from a biblical perspective, and I believe, God's word has said that everyone believes this. So I'm coming at it from that worldview, but I would never start a conversation that way.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I would just say that his reformed / presuppositionalist stuff is wrong. At least the way he's formulating it. There's a lot better articulators of presuppositionalism than Joe. That's what my disagreement would be with him.
Right. Your holy book tells you to do otherwise. The same holy book that commands people to go execute children. Got it.
Humanistically, my perspective, let them live a little longer. That makes sense, but I'm not God. I don't get to make that call.
He also admits that he has a differing opinion from God with regard to slaughtering villages, but he knowingly suppresses his humanistic and moral alignment, even when his moral code comes in conflict with said God's commands.
This is like my son when he breaks down his Legos. Would it have better for those Legos to live a little longer on his desk? I don't know, but he made the Legos. He decided to break them down and build something else up. That's the Lego maker's call. And in this situation, this is God's call because it's his creation. These are his pots of clay, and he made that decision, not me.
He rationalizes this with a bizarre comparison of living, breathing people compared to Lego bricks.
By the way, Eric here is assuming that living, breathing people have some kind of value. Based on, I assume, random chance and processes and evolutionary kind of stuff. I'm not saying they don't have value. I'm saying he doesn't believe that people have ultimate value and purpose, but he's assuming they do for some weird reason. Maybe it's like one of those bad cultural expressions that he can't get rid of, like saying, oh my God. Might be.
Yikes. So, Joe, let me ask you. It's easy to look at murdered children in a historical tale in a dusty book and make this rationalization. But what if it was your own kids? What if God commanded your kids to be executed? Except the daughters, of course. Would you stick with your convictions here? Now, I think he'd likely answer, oh, well, God would never command me to do something like that because...
I like that I'm in the age of grace where people do get to live even when they haven't worshipped.
Let me answer that question. This is why these sorts of questions are false dichotomies. And again, Eric, if you ever end up watching this, don't do that, please. Because you're not putting in all the factors. say you're not doing what the Midianites were doing. You're not doing what these ancient groups are doing in Canaan, which is sacrificing their own children. It doesn't seem to me that they hold their children up to a great deal of value themselves. Just one of the things. That would change the entire scenario, would it not? Because then there might be a morally sufficient reason for a sort of judgment to come upon you. I wonder what Eric would do if he found out that the neighboring town were all killing their firstborn children, sacrificing them to some kind of a god.
God, and they have an opportunity to repent. I think I'm really glad I was born in the New Testament. I'm not going to lie. That's a bloody awful scene.
The age of grace. This is a new concept to me, as it wasn't taught in my church.
Then you didn't go to a good church. You're telling me the new covenant wasn't taught in your church? What church did you go to, dude? Did you read any theology books? Did you go to Bible study? Oh, well, you might have. I don't know, man. What do you mean you've never heard the term the age of grace? Like it's seriously new news? And you went to church and then you became an atheist? I don't know about Eric very much, but that's interesting to me.
And I'm guessing what you mean by the age of grace, or at least part of it, is that we are now in an era where God no longer commands such heinous things as butchering children. But that does raise the question, what would you do if you weren't in the age of grace? What if you were one of those Israelites back then and Moses came down and said, hey guys, God commands us to go to this village and kill everyone, except the virgin girls, which, hey, you can keep. What would you do? Would you say to yourself, well, this goes against my humanity, but God commands it, so I've got to do it. And then you would grab your sword and go join the party? Joe, would you cut your way into a family's home, killing the father, the mother, the son, walking over to the baby's crib, checking the baby's sex, and then upon discovering that it's a male, stick your sword through its throat? And then afterwards, turn to the only survivor, a little girl, grab her by the wrist, and then pull her to the wagon to join the others, to be later used for yourself? I'm really curious what your answer to this would be. Would you do it or not? I hope not. Oh, now, Eric, that's a terrible story to paint. Those are terrible questions to ask. But it's not. It's in your Bible. This is what your God supposedly commanded. This is what you're defending and calling moral. Joe, I really do hope that you consider these questions carefully. Because, honestly, from what I've seen of you so far, you strike me as a really swell guy. You would be fun to sit down and have a beer with and just shoot the shit. But you do need to sit down and really think about this. Because your answer to my question was a confused, contradiction-riddled mess. You attempted to defend and rationalize child slaughter, and then you expressed gratitude that you weren't faced with those choices. You didn't have to participate in those atrocities. And you did that in hopes that this would make you not look as bad? I sincerely ask you to think about this. All right, friends, that's it for this one. You know, when I sat down to work on this episode, I had no idea this would turn into a 30-minute video, but this was a fun project and I enjoyed researching and writing it. I learned a lot throughout, and I hope you enjoyed it and we'll come back for more. Feel free to leave me a comment down below. Did I miss something? Make a blatant error? Could I have made any improvements? Let me know. Also, if you'd like to promote the growth of this channel, go ahead and...
Yeah, you made some errors. It's called civility and dignity. That's one of the errors that you made. Smugness is another error amongst some fallacies, informal fallacies, I would say. Let me go back and read some of your comments, guys. I saw some folks were complaining about a lag. Is that has that been resolved, ladies and gentlemen? David, are you atheist, by the way? And do you is it hard for you to break that cultural habit? It's not even a cultural habit, by the way. Well, linguistic habit of saying, oh my God, all the time. By the way, I don't even do that. And I believe in God. Because I don't think I should just randomly be saying that. I do say things like, oh my, or Lord have mercy. Because I genuinely want his mercy in a given situation. Someone needs to send these atheists a list of the 10 most common logical fallacies. God cannot do illogical things. Amen. Correct. This is true. Logical so can't go against the laws of logic. This is also true. So stream's lagging, everything get fixed. Okay, let's go. Saad says the amount of hubris with this guy. Saad, we're at an age, my friend, where we're tired of that. Like, it's really annoying. Sometimes I think about myself and things I've said and things I've done, the way I've said it, not things I've said, the way I've done and said things. Like, Arthur, you were such an arrogant jerk, man. I just can't stand stuff like that. Arrogance really, really bothers me, and I can smell it a mile away. So Saad says, I'm unsure how to answer what he's saying, though. He's assuming an objective standard of morality, for one thing. Yeah, so Saad, you would say that. Like, based on your worldview, why do you think God's doing anything wrong? It's like, well, based on my worldview, I don't think he's doing anything wrong. Cool. And based on my worldview, he's supreme and he can do whatever he wants. Let's just say, like, just to be a jerk. So what are you complaining about? Right, like, the conversation would end there. He did say sweet Buddha, which is really, really weird. It's like somehow trying to compete with, oh my God. I doubt there's anything sweet about the Buddha. Turn from a nice atheist to Sam Harris. Sam Harris might be nicer. Arthur, how would you answer Eric's question from the super chat? I would say that the question is too simplistic of a question because there's a number of things that have been assumed in the given situation. That's what I would say. I tried earlier when I paused it on that, and I said, I would say no, because I believe that God has orchestrated and formulated the world in a certain way, and certain things need to be done. And based on those conditions, the answer is a no. But we would need to sit down and break down what those conditions are, whether they're, this and that. I mean, his response was, go like that, poof them out, put them somewhere else and let them die in peace. Why? That's why, because killing them would be just so much, like, these are people who are sacrificing their children. Maybe they do need to be punished in that way. By the way, I don't need to say they do need to be punished that way. The answer is maybe they need to be punished that way. And his poof thing goes out the window. No justification for why the commands are wrong. He just says it. Yeah, he just assumes because being nice as human beings is a great, great thing to him for some reason. Like, I wonder where he got that from. Like, be nice to people. I wonder what evolutionary biology and Darwinism teaches. Social Darwinism teaches us to be so nice. It's amazing. After looking through my Bible, I confirm you were right. I was wrong about the name of Yahweh, Elohim. That is humility, man. Thank you for your humility. And the fact that you went and checked it up and looked it up in your Bible and figured it out. Isn't that cool? Yes, atheists and oh my God and Jesus Christ are regular expressions, exasperated refrains. Stop doing it. By the way, I don't think Christians should speak like that. I do not allow my kids, I wouldn't say are Christians. They're young, but I don't allow my kids to speak like that. I got an 8-minute video recommendation. Logan Paul admits to George He got punished for defaming God. Caution swear words. I'm not going to play that. I think John McCrae did a video on it. Go check his out. I'm not really like, I don't know what's going on in that friendship. Like, I would have to assume a bunch of stuff that I just won't want to. But yeah, I'm not going to respond to that one. One of the things that Eric, it would be really nice for Eric to recognize is that his morality is extremely Christian. I'll play you guys something soon. I would argue greater moral wisdom probably came from Buddhism than Christianity, really. So completely, you do realize that here's one thing that people might not know about Buddha. The Buddha abandoned his family and his very young child to go and find nirvana. His wife and his child. So that's the founder of the whole thing, to say the very least. The whole purpose of Buddhism is to completely separate yourself from any kind of desires. You think that is morally wise, David? True wisdom, true morality comes from you separating yourself from the desire to love your wife, the desire to love your neighbor, to do good unto them. You think that's morally advantageous? Complete and utter separatism? Living in the desert? I'd push back on that. Some earlier texts of Buddhism were extremely misogynistic too. I did not know that. Thank you. Just going to assume that's true. I remember when you interviewed that Buddhist on Periscope. This is old, long time ago. I might have that one saved too. Dude, did you just like archive my Periscope videos? Can you send it? Can you just do me a favor and send me everything you have saved? Just email me everything you have saved of mine from the Periscope days. Please. I believe that many of men's ills are born of desire. Yes. Yeah, I would say that's an oversimplification on the word desire. And by the way, that's obviously true. You desire and therefore you murder and kill. I mean, read the New Testament. Read the book of Proverbs. It'll teach you that. But the answer to that is not to remove all desire. That seems a bit extreme. Because common wisdom would say, or common sense wisdom would say, hey, there's desires that are great. They're good for you. They're actually morally advantageous and healthy for you. And society. So, I wonder if what you're saying is if the conclusion would be a hasty generalization. I believe that men's ills are born of desire. You should say some desire, to be clear. Not all desire, obviously. Therefore, desire is wrong. Therefore, get rid of desire. What's the therefore is my question I get. He said pretty much. Guys, would you not love to watch old conversations I had on Periscope with different folks? I should do a reaction video to my own videos. How amazing would that be? Pretty much, I saved them and would listen to them while working. Man, you are amazing. Wow. It would be very interesting to go back. I don't know, when was that? 9 years ago? 10 years ago? To go back and watch my old videos and see if I would say things differently. That'd be cool to do. Talk about being in the Inception. What's up, Cody? Hello. That would be awesome to see some classic Periscope streams of you again. This is nuts. I love it. The ones you saved are audio. That's okay. We'll listen to them. Quick question. I'm not sure if you know, but who is C.S. Lewis? And was he a Mormon? No, he was not a Mormon. I know who C.S. Lewis was. C.S. Lewis was, it depends. He wasn't a Mormon. He was, let's just say, a Christian. He might have been Anglican. Some Catholics claim him. Protestants claim him. Everybody claims C.S. Lewis. Definitely not a Mormon. I don't know why. I don't know where you even would have heard that. C.S. Lewis is probably one of the greatest thinkers of the 20th century. I might be too much. One of the greatest. If we have like 50 great thinkers, C.S. Lewis would be in there. Yes, that would be good. Oh, man. Yeah. I don't know where you would have heard C.S. Lewis was a Mormon. That's just, it's so like from left field, Jewel. Help me understand where that idea is coming from. Anglicanism for the win, AJ says. Oh, man. Oh, okay, so I was watching. Let me make a recommendation for you guys. This is a YouTube channel you guys should all be subscribed to. He was definitely Anglican. Okay, so let's just say he was Anglican. So, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you are subscribed to this YouTube channel if you want to learn and study and become smarter. Hoover Institution. Because you will get good stuff. Ranges from religious conversations to political conversations, generally conservatism, right? Like, let me see what their About section says. The Hoover Institution channel on YouTube hopes to encourage discussions, generate ideas, and disseminate information which will help secure and safeguard peace, improve the human condition, and limit government intrusion into the lives of individuals. While the Hoover Institution welcomes comments from YouTube viewers, we exercise the right to monitor and then okay, we'll leave that. Okay, so I was watching a video yesterday, and it was actually this video right here, 1 hour and 7 minutes.
Christian principles and
this video is a conversation between Tom Holland. Tom Holland, by the way, is an atheist, historian, Greco-Roman historian. He's a British guy. Stephen Meyer is a proponent of intelligent design. He's a Christian. And Douglas Murray is, I'm pretty sure, an atheist. Might be agnostic. In this conversation, both Tom Holland and Douglas Murray, the atheists, speak about, let me actually drop this in the, both of them, highly recommend you guys watch that, by the way. Both of them speak about how they are a result of Christian culture, and the way they think is very Christian. Their morality, their understanding of right and wrong, all of that is extremely Christian. Didn't fall on them from the sky. Their atheism didn't produce it. It is a result of the Judeo-Christian worldview in the West. Not the Roman or philosophical worldview of the Greeks or something like that. As a matter of fact, Tom Holland wrote a book, which I highly recommend. I loved that book. Tom Holland wrote a book called Dominion, How the Christian Revolution Remade the World, written by an atheist. And he speaks about a great deal of these things, scientific advancements in the West, why that was the case, draws distinctions between the old Greco-Roman world or the old Roman world compared to what Christendom brought into the West and how developed things. written by an atheist. Really, really, really good book. I mean that in the historical sense, like the data is really good, but I also mean it in the sense of like his honesty and the fact that he has nothing to gain from it, right? He's not like sitting there, like he's not a Christian. He's not trying to convert people like I am. It's just a good book. Douglas Murray, I'm actually going to get the audiobook to the book. I think he just wrote a book called The War on the West. The War on the West. Douglas Murray. There it is. Look at that. Let's see. Here. The War on the West. Douglas Murray. We'll get the audiobook. Bam. Done. If you guys have comments and questions, put them there. I'm going to listen to that one. I've been listening to books of that sort. Audiobooks, I can do books like that. Which one? The Tom Holland one, man? Really, really good. Library. Oh, there it is. The War on the West. It's already... The War on the West is a 12-hour listen. You do it 1.5 the speed, which is what I do. You get done with it in 2-3 days. Instead of, I don't know, being on Facebook, guys. Right? Don't do that. By the way, if I show, like... alongside that, I just actually got a manual for creating atheists by Peter Boosian. Just to let you know the kind of sort of stuff I listen to. Cool. Yeah, but Dominion was really good. I just I realized I've deleted it from my library to tell you. I was trying to see what the listening time was on that book. But it wasn't long. Really fun book. What else? Anything else we want to talk about? We've been on for an hour and 13-14 minutes. But I always want to encourage you guys, and I will continue to be subscribed to the Hoover Institution channel. It's such a good channel. And then listen to the Uncommon Knowledge. Uncommon Knowledge. All of them, like every single one of them I've listened to, I've thoroughly enjoyed. I've really enjoyed ones with Stephen Kotkin, who is a researcher on all things Stalin. So, you want to know truth. You want to know where certain worldviews lead to, if you want to be logically consistent, I guess, suppose. Listen to stuff about Stalin. David took off. Aw. See ya, David. Probably be hopping off. Getting too late, but I've got a fun video for you to check out. Send it my way, man. PT doing the job. Random question. Do you ascribe to the energies of God, doctrines that Eastern Orthodox theologians teach? I don't know. Sometimes I get really confused as to the way that we speak about these things and then the translations we're getting about them, like the word energies, like what does it even mean? Things of that sort. So, like the 7 spirits of God in Revelation or 7 energies of God, I probably wouldn't. I would probably say that that is some kind of a symbolic usage. So, yeah. I just, again, translations and then people, Eastern Orthodox folks tend to be a lot more mystical in the way they do theology, which is not necessarily my cup of tea. So yeah, I don't know. I would need to sit and read books on it and then see whether I'm convinced by it and stuff like that. Yeah. Talking more will get me in trouble. Anything else? I just got a funny text. I've been watching Jay Dyer quite a bit lately, watching him debate atheism, and have come across these doctrines of energies and essences in Eastern Orthodoxy. Yeah, so they exist there, but I'm probably one of the worst people to ask about it. So limitation to my knowledge on the subject. Do you think that early Christians, who were also called atheists, were as influenced by Greek and Roman theology as atheists today are influenced by the larger religions around them? That's a good question. Let me reread the question. Do you think that early Christians, who were also called atheists, they're called atheists because they're denying the pantheon of gods, were as influenced by Greek and Roman theology as atheists today are influenced by the largest religions around them? My initial reaction, by the way, is just to say yes. Because it's very clearly the case in the first 3-4 centuries, at the very least, that Christians are influenced by Greco-Roman philosophy. Now, it's not like, the year 100 hits and then Greco-Roman philosophy stops, right? Greco-Roman philosophy continues moving, and then Christian thought and apologetics and philosophy starts moving in a parallel way. And as the years move on, you get kind of both of these kind of competing ideas thrown around. For a better understanding of this, I highly recommend you guys listen to the podcast. Wow, just forgot the podcast name. And this is the second time live on these streams I have forgotten this. The History of Philosophy Without Any Gaps, which I stopped listening to. I haven't listened to it for quite a bit. I got to get back into it. But that's why I'm forgetting the name. The History of Philosophy Without Any Gaps. Again, not a Christian podcast or anything like that. It's a really good resource for learning the history of philosophy and how these things move in parallel ways and what competing ideas there are and how to navigate them. So they're definitely influenced by them, but they also redeem them and disagree with them on things that they're saying. So they're actually interacting with it and using the stuff that they know they can use, and then leaving the stuff out that they don't need or is contradictory to what Scripture teaches. But yeah, hope that helps. Okay, I think we're good, huh? We'll say we're good. We'll say we're good, and then we'll head out. It's 10:40. Tomorrow I don't have a guest, but I might. I'm going to try in the morning to maybe do an off-the-cuff interview with a friend or something like that. So no scholar tomorrow, but I'm putting together a list of scholars and kind of reaching out to them. I want to have like a month or two pre-planned, and then we'll go from there. But that takes work and time. So the Thursday interviews, that's what's going on. But maybe I might have a friend on, and then we will have a discussion on some really fun subjects. That friend might even be a scholar. We'll see. Thanks, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate it. My voice is doing funny stuff now, so that means it's time to go. I had T sitting next to me this entire time. Y'all got me so excited about this stuff that I forgot to drink my tea. Sounds good. Sounds good. Do you have a set time for the stream tomorrow morning? Yeah, it will be the same time we do the interviews, which is 1. What am I doing? Yeah, so 1 p.m. is when we do the interviews typically, and so we'll have our thing at 1 p.m. and go from there. Well, folks, thank you. God bless you. It's been a pleasure as always, hanging out with you, talking with you, answering your questions. And if you so please, become a patron, support us on Patreon, or you can give in all the ways that you can give in the description box. But we'd appreciate your patronage on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Apologia Center. You can support for as little as $5 a month, and that goes a long way. God bless you guys. Take care. I will see you later.